The Trump press conference was contentious at any number of different points, but I don't think that the tone of the event was ever more tense than while Trump was being questioned about the news that came out yesterday from two different sources, from CNN about him potentially, Russia potentially having compromising information about him on the one hand, and then Buzzfeed talking about the golden shower gate on the other hand. He wasn't happy about this, as you'll see in this video.
Morning about, are we living in Nazi Germany? What were you driving at there? What are you trying to tell the country?
I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. I think it's a disgrace. And I say that, and that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. I think it's a disgrace. That information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public.
Wow.
Yeah, so before I comment on that video clip, I just want to backtrack for a second and just give my very quick take on BuzzFeed's decision to release that 35-page dossier that had all of this unverified leaked information. Now, BuzzFeed was clear that it was unverified, that they've been investigating it for months and they've been unable to verify it. And even though they were clear over and over again in their reporting, I think that it was beyond irresponsible and unethical for them to publish that. Now, you know that I'm no fan of Donald Trump. I've been clear about that on various occasions. But if you care about journalistic ethics, you don't just publish some document when it's unverified and then allow your readers to decide for themselves. That's something that we've railed against on the show regularly, and I want to remain consistent on that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to focus on the Donald Trump stuff, but yes, but we cannot gloss over the fact that they repeatedly said in the initial reporting, before you even see the document, you see them saying this is unveriverified.
They do repeat that over and over
people
again.
who are attacking it and like making this big deal, like continually forget that part. That is what is the opposite of fake news is they had it, they put it out and told you, do not simply trust this.
Yeah.
Whereas fake news is designed to fool
mislead
you into thinking that it's true. They did the opposite of that. You saw there, I mean, like, is he channeling Orwell in what he said about Nazi Germany? So he said the intelligence agencies, I'll assume that he's talking about the CIA, although he might be speaking more broadly, how could they have allowed this information to be released? And because they allowed it to be released, we are living in Nazi Germany. So he's saying, in his perfect world, apparently, the CIA would have somehow known that BuzzFeed was going to post on a website, basically, and would have stopped them from doing it. And because they didn't censor BuzzFeed, we live in Nazi Germany. That is some bizarre shit right there.
Right. So we are supposed to uphold our Constitution, and a constitutional right is freedom of the press, which means that the government is not allowed to come in and censor the speech of certain individuals or members of the press or news outlets. So it's literally unconstitutional to say that members of the government should go after a news organization and stop them from publishing certain material. You literally don't have, any constitutional argument in favor of what you're arguing right there, Trump. So again, what he's advocating for goes against our First Amendment, something that a lot of people who have voted for him say that they really support, right? So keep that in mind.
Exactly. And so as I was saying, it got contentious. So in this next video, you're going to see, I believe, Jim Acosta of CNN attempting to ask a question after his entire news organization was trashed by Donald Trump. You'll see that right here.
As far as Buzzfeed, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up, it's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace. And I think they ought to apologize to start with, Michael Cohen.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance? You are attacking our news organization. Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state, Mr. President-elect, can you state categorically, Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question? You're attacking us. Can you give us a question? Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir, can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
any number of internet trolls absolutely love that he called them fake news because they have no interest in facts. They don't believe that there is an objective reality that you can ascertain or look into. But he just said, your organization is terrible. Your organization is terrible. You're fake news to CNN, one of the largest news organizations in the world. Now, really fast, as I said in our production meeting, CNN sucks in any number of different ways. They focus on the wrong stories. They've massively scaled back international reporting, which they, with their huge amount of money that they have, can uniquely do in comparison to a lot of other organizations.
And investigative reporting.
And investigative reporting here domestically. They push false equivalence by putting on absolute right-wing jackasses to argue that climate change doesn't exist and all of that. I mean, there's any number of different ways you can attack them. But they have not simply made up a story entirely that they know is untrue and then tried to make you believe that it is true, which is what fake news is.
In an effort to smear people. And by the way, fake news is a problem. Like, that is an ongoing issue that certain social media platforms are trying to deal with, namely Facebook.
Yeah.
And what I do find really interesting is members of the right, including Donald Trump, thought that the whole issue of fake news wasn't even relevant. It was just a made-up excuse by the Democrats because they lost. And now all of a sudden, he's using the phrase fake news
even though people were talking about it months before the election.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And now he's using the phrase fake news to attack a media organization that he disagrees with. By the way, if you want to be angry at Buzzfeed for publishing those documents, I think that it's well within your right to do so, right? CNN did not publish the details of those documents. They actually went out of their way to avoid doing that.
Yeah.
It was Buzzfeed who published the details, and some of them, of course, are lewd and terrible and all that. But it was a very broad, vague thing that CNN published. So I find it really interesting how angry Donald Trump is at them. I'm very curious to see if he even read what CNN had published about the story.
Or knows that it's two different things. So CNN reported previously that there was the 2-page addendum about the potential for personal or financial information being possessed by Russian officials that could compromise Donald Trump.
Right.
That has nothing to do with Pissgate or any of that. They're from different places. They were reported on by different places. One appears to be the case. One is obviously not the case. He is attempting to make you think that those are the same story because he wants you to just discount all media and believe that he is the only ultimate arbiter for the truth. And the way he treated CNN there, like bringing them in and then having your pen of cheering people in the background and then attacking the media right in front of you. Like, this is before he's president. He's already doing this. And many of you watching this don't like CNN for many of the same reasons that I don't. But this is just the beginning. And if he can do that to CNN, he can do that to any media outlet, regardless of who it is that you like. He can do the same thing. He's previously banned people from his press pool. He's hidden from his press pool. He's previously talked about how we should open up libel laws so that we can sue the New York Times for criticizing him. This is part of a wide-scale philosophical opposition to a free media that Donald Trump possesses. And we're really sorry. I know that I'm going on. So I was attacked on Twitter before doing the show today by Piers Morgan, who felt that I needed to grow a pair because I'm worried about a possible authoritarian right-wing leader in America shutting down our free press. No, we need to grow a pair and defend our fucking press. Because without that, we're not going to know about any of the other corruption, any of the other breaking of the laws that Donald Trump and his cronies will do. We need the press to find out about that. And if we allow Trump to destroy it before he's even in office, then that's effectively cutting off our balls. So hopefully Piers Morgan can catch up to us on that.
It seems as though he has pierced a nerve.
A little bit. No, I don't even care. I generally, I like Piers Morgan for the most part. It's it's that others agree with him, and that is a scary precedent. I got no problem with Piers Morgan individually.
Right. Okay. So you make good points all around, and you always have to think about violations of rights and how it would impact you or the party that you like if you are right now in the middle of defending Donald Trump in the way that he treats certain media organizations that you don't like, right?
Yes.
So let's say that Donald Trump's term is over. We've elected a Democrat, and the Democrat does the exact same thing that Donald Trump is doing in terms of rolling back certain constitutional rights pertaining to our First Amendment, freedom of press and all that. Would you be okay with that? You know, just because it might be happening to a news organization that you don't like at the moment doesn't mean that it'll somehow impact society as a whole in the future or impact other news organizations that do a great job in reporting, that do a great job speaking truth to power, holding elected officials accountable. So this is a big problem. And by the way, this was predictable when you consider the fact that during the election, Donald Trump revoked the press credentials of Washington Post, of the Washington Post, because he just simply disagreed with their reporting. He didn't like that they were doing reporting that shined a negative light. So keep all these things in mind, because you can't play with this as if it's not a big deal. It's a huge deal. You need to make sure that we have free-flowing information, that we don't have elected officials censoring our media, and that's what appears to be happening right now.
Exactly. And actually, exactly to that point, let's roll this last video where Acosta talks about what happened after what you saw in the previous video.
At one point during this news conference, just in the interest of full disclosure, and so everybody knows what's going on and what was happening in the room, after I asked and I guess you might say demanded that we have a question, Sean Spicer, the incoming press secretary, did say to me that if I were to do that again, I was going to be thrown out of this press conference. Of course, Wolf, I had to persist there and try to get that question asked.
So, if you are a member of the press and they don't like you, if you ask a question, you could potentially be thrown out. And so, okay, you might say, oh, well, that's right after their little altercation. Okay, so what happens at the next press conference if it's Acosta? Is he told then, if you have the audacity to ask a question, we'll throw you out? And what if, as you say, like, I love that you're looking ahead to potential Democratic president, but I can't even look that far. I mean, like, most of the people watching our video right now who are watching this hate the mainstream media and actually love watching them get slapped around a little bit. And I understand the schadenfreude of that. But like, let's say the Young Turks at some point, one of your favorite reporters from the Young Turks gets a seat in that room, or some other online source of media. If Amy Goodman's in that room, or whatever, you want to see them treated that way?
I think that that exchange with Jim Acosta posed a perfect opportunity for Donald Trump to defend himself, right? And so someone like President Obama would have, I think, handled that situation in a much better way. He wouldn't shut it down. Look, I think that what was published is unverified, and I don't believe anything until it has been verified, unless there are at least some corroborating sources, right? In this case, there aren't, so I don't believe it.
For the Buzzfeed one.
For the Buzzfeed story. Now, with that said, though, I feel like if I were in that situation, or if Barack Obama were in that situation, he would respond to it and he would prove that he has nothing to hide, right? Why is he so afraid of that question? Why are you so afraid of CNN asking you that question? You're supposed to be a strong leader, right? You're supposed to be this tough guy. So let the reporter ask you a question and answer the way that you feel is accurate. Why are you shutting him down? I just find it interesting that he reacted that way. That's not to say that I believe the leaked information, but I still think that it would have been a good opportunity for him to just defend himself.
I agree.
You can help build independent media. We're now doing fundraising to get 4 new investigative reporting teams out there and be the watchers on the wall. We're not going to let Trump get away with anything. We're not going to let the establishment get away with anything. You help us build it. TYTnetwork.com/go. Be part of the solution.